The sun is up, the drinks are hot, and now it's time for our first cup. Today, wet light. So, do you know what happens when you combine a squirt gun and a 60s style desk lamp? Pretty cool idea, right? You would never really think to combine those things together. There's a sense of novelty around them, right? Well, when I was a kid, I wanted to find out what happened when you combine these things. You know, uh, I was obsessed with this desk light. It was hotter than any other light in the house, right? I knew that when you turned on lights, because we had, those incandescent light bulbs when I was a kid, when you turned on a light, there was some heat that would get generated from it. But this desk lamp, you turned it on, it just got hotter than anything else in the house. And I knew that because, I'd kind of touched other bulbs and like they were warm, but this one, like when I touched it, it was hot. It burned me, right? In ways that other bulbs didn't after being on for a few minutes. And so, you know, I was kind of transfixed by this. Right. Now, growing up in Arizona, something that a lot of kids get exposure to are squirt guns and like squirt bottles and things, right? Because it turns out when it's 100 God whatever outside and your kids are playing outside, uh, people having water guns is a great way to keep them cool, right? And I knew that in the squirt bottles and squirt guns, whatever, like the water was pretty cool, and that when I got squirted with cool water, I cooled down. So I'm like, well, this lamp's really hot. So I wonder I wonder what happens if I squirt the lamp, right? And so I did. And man oh man, like I got a result I wasn't expecting at all. Like the bulb just blew up. Just boom, right? Now, to be clear, the bulbs in this lamp were smaller, right? They're kind of like a little bit less than the size of like a golf ball, so they weren't like the big ones that you might be thinking of. But I squirted it and it shattered. It just like light goes out and there you go. This was just so cool to me, right? Here's these two things that I've never seen combined anywhere else. Like I've never seen like, my mom and my dad haven't like squirted a lamp before the squirt gun. I haven't seen this on any science shows. Like I've done this thing that's so novel and so new, and it's so cool to just look at this reaction and see what's happening. And so I scampered off, right? Um, which is so excited, just scampered away. And eventually my parents replaced the lamp on the or the bulb in the lamp. And I'm like, oh man, I wonder if it'll happen again. I wonder if it was so that was just like a one-off thing. So turn on the lamp, let it get heated up, get a little squirty squirt, and it happens again. Fantastic, right? Now, there were different effects this time. I will say, like, yes, the bulb exploded, but also my parents figured out why the lamp bulb had shattered, like the first one had shattered. And then I got told about how I probably shouldn't mix water and electricity. So something a little different. Now, if you have kids or you've been around kids or cared for kids at any period of time, you probably resonate with that story on some level. But even if you haven't been in those situations with, precocious little kids trying to experiment with things, like you do understand the idea of novelty, and you do understand how it impacts you and me and everyone else. And one of the truths about a lot of novelty, you know, uh, when we're adults, actually, really, no matter what age we're at, but especially like when we're adults, we're aware of it, is that a lot of novelty just kind of happens to us, right? That we have kind of no say in, right? Like, I don't know about you. I did not vote for a pandemic to happen. I didn't vote for the changes that were happening, but I didn't vote for the changes that happened because of the recovery, right? I didn't vote for the economic situations like during and after each of those things. I didn't vote for AI to exist. I didn't vote for, the hype cycles around any of those things. But they all were there and they've all impacted my life and yours, right? And as it turns out, it's important to be like aware of these things, these novel things that happen to us, because if we're not careful, we can kind of get sucked into this trap where we start associating novelty with like negativity, where we start associating change with things that aren't good, right? Maybe we see it as neutral, but ultimately, when you don't have a say in a lot of the changes that are happening, there's a tendency to kind of fear them or dismiss them or just kind of push them off to the side. And that is not a sustainable plan long term, right? It's just one of those biases. It's a human universal, but we need to figure out a way around it. We need to rebalance change in our life. So, and what does that mean? Well, like I said, like change that happens, like the pandemic, the recovery, the economy, AI, whatever. Like those things all happen without us interceding, right? These things are going to happen no matter what's going on. And on the other side here, we've got the change that we can choose, right? And what we want to make sure is that like the weight of what's over here doesn't make us ignore what we do over here. In fact, what we want to do is we want to have more changes that we can choose, so like those scales kind of get brought more into balance. We want to be able to choose the novelty and the change in our world, because it helps us keep a more circumspect view of what's possible and perhaps even probable. Like the way that we deal with change and the way that we deal with novelty ultimately becomes like a giant self-fulfilling prophecy, right? You know, give you an example. Like I didn't tell you the whole story of putting squirt guns and lamps together. Turns out there were some other benefits and other outcomes of, the second time that I did, or maybe it was the third. Could have been the third. I like trying stuff. Anyway, um, as a result of like trying to clean it up, I learned that you could combine two other things that I would have never thought bringing next to each other. Um, Potatoes and light bulbs. Like, did you know that if you cut a potato in half and you use kind of like the wide side, you can use that to kind of latch onto and kind of suck onto like the jagged parts of a light bulb. And then once that's happened, you can just use the potato to kind of unscrew the broken bulb from the fixture without like damaging yourself. And all it costs you is half of a potato, right? Never would have learned that trick. Thanks, Dad. Um, I never would have learned that if I hadn't thought about trying to combine like squirt guns and desk lamps, right? I mean, maybe I would, but I learned it because of that. That much is absolutely clear. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is that no matter what age we are, we're probably all better served by thinking a little bit more like a 5-year-old who's just become fascinated with wet light. So please remember that no matter what you've heard or what I've said, death comes for us all, and a closed mouth never gets fed. Take care of yourselves. Find some novelty. I'll see you soon.